Hello everyone and welcome back to another Minas Tirith update video. As you may have noticed, the last Minas Tirith update video was uploaded quite a while ago, and unfortunately I have to say that there hasn't been much activity on the project since then, so this video will take a bit of a different approach. Instead of updating you on work that's already been done on the project, I've decided to record myself going through and building some things on the fly. I thought I might start this video off by doing some work on the Tower of Ecthelion. As you can see, it's not even half the height of what it will be eventually, and yet it's already spectacularly tall. The top of this magenta pillar is the current build limit for this world. It's been increased already. As you can see, 447 is the max build height for this world so far. We'll probably have to go up to, I don't know, 500 and something. Unfortunately, at this height of the tower, the references become a little bit scarce, so things may end up being a little bit less accurate above this point. That being said, I'll still try to do my best to recreate things. You'll see me do this a lot. I fly away to get a view of how it feels before I go back in to do more work on it. As much as I don't want to make this tower taller than it already is, I think I'll have to make this section a little bit taller, because it's looking a bit stubby right now. That feels better. I'll throw some of the references up on screen so that you guys can see. But essentially there's this part of the tower here, and it's sort of reminiscent of the Tower of Cirith Ungol in a way, which is, I suppose, nice because they're both Gondorian, but we don't have Cirith Ungol on the server, but if we did, it's different enough that I wouldn't be able to use it. But this is the replace tool, and you can left click on a block to set that to the replace tool, and then when you right click with the replace tool, it'll replace all the blocks to that, like that. And you can do it like this, not that I want to, but yeah, it's very useful in being able to place blocks that you wouldn't normally be able to place, so stairs like that, for example. So yeah, I'm not too thrilled at having to do this, but I don't think it's turning out bad. I think it's turning out better than the original. Because the whole point of this project was to do it better than the first time I tried. Now, a lot of building is trial and error. And a lot of building in Minecraft is imperfection. For example, these will never touch. But from a distance, it'll look fun. It's just when you get up close that the illusion breaks. Yeah, I think that feels about right. Because these here are thicker in the reference, so I think these being walls works. And as you probably noticed already, the top of this tower has some pretty funky colours. The reason for that is because I like to work with what I suppose you could call intermediate blocks. Essentially, if I'm not too certain on how something is going to look before I finish, I'll be using blocks that aren't what the end product will look like. And the reason for that is that if it doesn't turn out well, or if I'm not happy with the end result, then I can get rid of this top bit without impacting this bottom bit with a simple well-done command. The other reason is that if it's something that is going to be textured quite a bit, like for example, we have a Helm's Deep here, which I touched up the other month. From a distance, it looks, you know, it just looks grey. When you get up close, there's a lot of texture variation. So this is pretty much just stone brick, because this isn't even cracked. This is just variation in the texture pack. I'm getting down to cracked stone brick here, more of it, and then cobblestone and the bigger cobblestones down the bottom. There are a lot of different textures in this, so originally it looked something like this, which looks pretty absurd compared to the completely grey castle, but as you can see, this is an easy way to texture and know where you're going to put all the different sorts of blocks, and that's why it's handy before you're doing texture, so you're not just brushing everything on the go. You have a good visual representation. Now, Minas Tirith isn't like that, which is good, because texturing like that takes a lot of work. There is some subtle texturing, so for example, I think I've done it on the, yeah, here, There's some rust. Usually put this below things so that where the water runs off, the rust would collect. And then there's also some moss in some other spots. So next to plants like this, we got some moss on the wall, just to help things blend together and feel natural. I also try to put rust down along the roof here where the water would run and all that sort of stuff. And they're very subtle details, but I think there's something that you do notice. Like up here, you know, it helps helps make a line between stuff, and like that there even, the water would run down from the roof. So it's about putting a lot of thought into what you do, but not necessarily doing something that's super loud or super busy. That's the sort of building that I try to do. Something that is simple, but detailed. And this project is... I was going to say no exception, but I don't even think that. I think this project is the epitome of that. Because there's so much detailing going on. There's the plants on the floor, there's braziers, there's benches, little rock crop outs, there's rust, there's moss. There's so much stuff going on that you don't necessarily think of at first until you sit down and think, what is my eye being drawn to? And it's a lot of hard work, but it's very rewarding. Yeah, that could work. Because it feels a bit pushed in right now. I'll do these as pillars, because all this magenta will be pillars. I'll just keep it going down. I'm not going to connect it here, because this bit should be like a little thin jut out, like these. Oh, I'm so close. I always try to do a thing where I try to get it spot on with those. I rarely ever do, but it's a fun game. But I often have my friends ask, how do you sort of build up skill at building? And I don't like talking about it because there's some big grand inference that I'm like an amazing builder, which I don't think I am. But yeah, there's this like, talking about that question, there's this sort of high ground of skill that to answer that question you need to be on. Which I don't necessarily think is applicable to me, but what I've always told them is that just practice. I started building in 2015, and I've continued, and now, I mean, it's definitely an improvement on where I was. So it's important, if you want to get better at it, to keep working, and to not, this is another thing that I think is important, to not just be someone that builds someone else's stuff. We can all start there. I started there, sure. But you don't want to keep doing that. You want to build, like, you want to get into your own style. And I've been told before that I have a style that is somewhat distinct from other people, which I'm glad about because it shows that I've evolved as a builder. And I think that's something that everyone needs to find. It's like in singing you need to find your own voice. In building you need to find your own style. And there's no one that can tell you what your style is. It's something that you need to find for yourself. I know that for me, I watched a lot of Korean videos. So I think there are elements from him, but you know, it's not all from him, and I never obsessively built things that my favorite YouTubers built. I did it a couple times. I remember B-Dubs was another influence of mine, where I would try to recreate some of his stuff before he'd released his most, you know, up-to-date world downloads for his building with B00 world. I would do that. And that was great, because it was a learning experience, but it wasn't me. No matter how much rambling I do, this tower is still kicking my ass. I'm really trying, but not super succeed. I think another good way to develop your building style is to try to recreate things. I mean, that's nearly all that I've done in my, I would say, building career, because I'm not paid for it, but that's something that I've done a lot. And I think it is something that is beneficial to try, with the limited tools of Minecraft, to come up with something that reflects something in real life. It's very challenging. I mean, it doesn't have to be real life, but you know what I mean? Something that exists, that, you know, someone has made before. To try and do that is difficult, but it can be very helpful, because it's a good way to tell if you're capturing something or not. If you just build something random, you know, then sure, that random thing might look cool, but it's difficult to know if you nailed it. Because you're like, oh, well, does it look like the thing? Well, what thing? Because it's not based on anything. Whereas, if you're building something that I keep going to say is tangible, but that's not right. But if you're building something that people know about, that you know about, you can say, well, I think I got that. I think that looks right. I think that looks wrong. You know, I think that looks silly. These windows really work. You know, this roof is the wrong shape. That wall is the right color. All those sorts of small things that work together to make a whole. And it's important to nail each of those things. Not only in each build, but in your style. And your style doesn't have to be realistic either. That's something that I think a lot of people fall into. There is a lot of fantastical style that works really well. You know, I see a lot of it on social media, when people just make, you know, a random build, this random build, that random build, and it looks great. Me, I've always been someone that's been focused on trying to make things look realistic. Not necessarily in the sense of, I'm building a modern building, or I'm building, you know, a perfectly accurate medieval house, or something like that, because I think that's, for me, that's not constructive. But what I'm trying to do is build something that feels like it could exist. So like this, I'm putting in as much detail as I can into something that is very obviously not true, but in the hopes that that detail helps ground the project in a way that feels real, even if you know it's not. I mean, this city could never exist. This tower would be an architectural marvel. But by putting rust and little things, and, you know, once I'm done the outside, doing the inside, you know, things like that, they all work together to make something feel realistic, and that's what I try to do. Yeah, I think I'm happy with this design for the pillars. I'll just go through and finish them off. I'll put another one. You see, as much as like, okay, this copper and magenta bit was the old height limit. Like, literally, I think the cutoff was here before, and I'm about to reach the cutoff again. There's so much for being able to do this with a new height limit. We'll need to upgrade the height limit to this world even more, because that's something that I think a lot of people realize you can't do. In the I'm actually not too sure how it's precisely done, but you can manually change the height limit of the world. So this is, like we discovered before, 447, and this goes down to negative whatever it is in the newest update. So there's a lot of space. And that means that this, because like this here is over 300. Oh no, okay, not quite. 287, pretty close. That's massive. This is like 200. Okay, no, it's like 150, but the point is, it's massive already, and it's not even done. There's still like probably another 100 blocks above that. And this is very difficult to tell because I've only got one image that shows this part of the tower. It seems like there's a sort of, what it seems to me is an arch that goes across two sections with a pillar in between. Yeah, that feels right enough. The difficult thing about this arch will be perfecting it from like this perspective, because when you're doing an arch, you want to make it look like you make it look the best that it can from where you're perpendicular to it. So in this case, it's a curve, but the middle's like this is going this direction, so I should go out this direction from it. And then from here, it should look as good as it can. And those look about right next to each other. So arches can be very difficult to get right, because in a game where there are no circles, you need to somehow manage to make one. So I'll build it on this side and then copy it around. This is the marvelous thing about welded it, and this is why I encourage everyone to have it, is that it is so much easier than building it all by scratch. There are some times, or actually a lot of times I think, where I could use welded and I probably don't. But at the same time, I learned to build without welded. So yeah, now that I built 90 degrees of it, because technically I didn't actually need to build this side, I just built it to see how it would look. Now that I've got 90 degrees of it, I'll just copy it around. See, it looks like I'm doing some by hand. I love welded. It's a thing that's hard to convince myself of sometimes. I think we'll probably end it there today. It might seem like a bit of an awkward spot to end it, but I wanted to get this episode out to you guys. There's more to edit, but I don't have time to do it yet. So this has been split into 2 parts. The rest of the recording will be released sometime in the future soon, and I plan to record more as well. But that's it for today's video. I'll see you guys in the next one.